A recovered alcoholic. My name is Pat Rogan. And thanks to the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous outlined in this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the program of AA, I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, and for that, man, I'm so forever grateful. AA didn't just save my life, but it gave me a new life. And man, my life is just incredible. I am absolutely, I was just telling Sheldon, I'm absolutely overwhelmed right now because, you guys heard me tell a story about my son last week, a text that he sent me, and he's sitting here tonight. And, who would ever think that your son would go on vacation and come down to see you and go to a freaking AA meeting with you? And he don't need it. That's the other side of that. I'm thinking that there's a possibility that I broke the chain. A long, long line of Irish drunks. I may have broke the chain. They grew up in these rooms, pretty much. He was 12 when I got sober. And him and his little brother, who was 2 at the time, were in the rooms throwing chips at each other and shit, And the women in the rooms helped me out watching the little one. And John sat in these rooms with me and got sober with me. That's just, who gets to do that? I mean, that's just overwhelmingly grateful right now. Welcome to the newcomers that are sitting in the room, because I surely thought that I had blown up my life when I got here. I truly thought my life was falling apart when I walked into these rooms, and all I could think about, as you probably are, is how can I put it back together, and really what in reality was my life was falling into place, and I couldn't see it. I just couldn't see it because there was all this stuff on the outside that I thought was going to fix me. If I could just get her back, if I could just get my boys back, if I could just get the house back, mainly the house and the boys, and freaking car. And I couldn't even hear you guys for a while because all I could think about in my head was, how do I fix this? How do I fix this? And I couldn't even hear the old timers tell me, Pat, you can't fix it. You can't fix it. And I would F them and you watch, I'll show you. No, you can't fix it, Pat. You get your shit together. You get yourself together. You fix yourself. And that'll be okay. We don't know what that is, but that'll be okay. Man, it was hard to buy into that. It was hard to surrender to that. It was hard to admit that I wasn't just powerless over alcohol and drugs, but I was powerless over my life. That my life is out of my control, that I'm not running the show. I had a hard time buying into that. I had a hard time. And it wasn't until I gave up on getting all that stuff back and just decided to do what you guys told me to do, because I really didn't believe that these steps could put me back together. I did not. What does an inventory have to do with getting my house and my children and my job and my wife back? And some old timer would look at me and just go, everything. Just everything. And they were right. They were right. But if you're new here, you got to be done. I mean, I say it every week that I'm here. You have to be convinced of those ABCs that we just read. You have to be convinced of the first 2 steps. That's a requirement for recovery, not for membership, but for recovery. If you're not sold on the 3 pertinent ideas, what are you doing here? You're probably not done. You got to be done. You got to be convinced that I'm powerless, that I cannot stay stopped on my own power, on any human power. It was obvious. I was willing to trade everything that I loved and everything that loved me in my life for a drink. It was obvious to me that there was no human power that was going to keep me stopped. And once I started, I knew I could control. The word control never came into my vocabulary. You know, I don't know why you'd want to control it. I don't understand that at all. You know, I drank because I liked the effect produced by alcohol, and the more the merrier. And if you want to throw something on top of it, let's go. You know? I had a 20-year history that says you can't control it. You know, I was convinced of that. But how do I do life sober? That's the issue. That is the issue. How do I do life sober? I don't like sober. I don't like feeling. I don't like torment. I don't like anxiety. I don't like fear.
From the mouths of babes.
From the mouths of babes, yeah. Thank you for that. I needed that. These 9 steps that we have gone through, and it's always hard when you have newcomers sitting in a room to, like, you're on step 9. Like, don't start there. You know what I mean? You don't have any credibility. You know, don't start there. There's a reason why there's 8 steps before 9. At some point there, we change, and we gain some credibility, and then we face these people that we're making amends to. We have some kind of change has been demonstrated. There's somebody else running the show when we get there. I'm not running the show anymore. But I needed to be convinced of those first 2 steps. And they told me, you know what your problem is, Pat? You're selfish, you're self-centered, you're driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-pity. You step on the toe, you use everybody around you. And they retaliate. And you blame them. And that 4th and 5th step is about finding out if that's true or not. For me, is that true? I needed to know if they were right. It's not a drinking problem. It's an emotional illness. It's a spiritual illness, they call it. I love Mark H. used to always say, an internal condition. Yeah, that's when it clicked for me. I didn't get spiritual malady. What the hell's a malady? Spiritual malady. Mark said it's an internal condition that I can't deal with. And I need to medicate to deal with it. I don't know how to deal with that internal condition sober. And the 4th step brought the truth out for me. I learned the truth about myself in there. Yes, I'm selfish, I'm self-centered, I'm driven by fear. The tools that I'm using to navigate life look like this: selfishness, inconsideration, dishonesty, fear. Those are the tools I'm using to navigate my life. Those are the tools I'm using to satisfy these instincts in my life. That's how I create relationships, with those tools. That's how I get people to like and accept me, with those tools. That's how I gain material possessions and gain prosperity in my life, using those tools. And at some point, it all comes crumbling down. People retaliate. And I share with you guys just probably every week here, my experience in step 5 was unbelievable. I had a spiritual awakening. I had this psychic change that they're talking about. I had God enter my heart in my 5th step. I mean, I had this profound experience. Bishop Barron calls it this epiphany. You know, this epiphany. You know, I think Eckhart Tolle talks about walking into a room for the 100th time and seeing it for the first time. You know, that's what happened. I saw the world for the first time differently. And for the first time in my life, I was at peace without a substance in my body. That's incredible. I wanted more of that. And how do I stay there? How do I stay there? I found it. Now how do I stay there? Well, that's what the rest of the steps are about for me. You know, that's the foundation. The rest of it's a lifetime process. 6 and 7, the rest of my life, I'm going to be working on character defects. I'll tell you a funny story. I decided the dimmer switch in my dining room went bad, right? So I go to Home Depot and I buy a new dimmer switch. And I'm putting the dimmer switch in, and one of the wires touches the box, and it blows up the dimmer switch, right? Internally. No external damage to the switch, right? But it blew the switch up. Right? So I pack it up real neatly back in this packet. Ooh. You know where I'm going already. Right? And I take this shit back to Home Depot. It's defective. It's the crap that goes on in my head, right? And I put it in the Home Depot bag with the receipt, and I put it in my truck. Now, you don't think that shit starts renting space in my head, right? I just took myself out of the sunlight over $15, right? And you know that part of you that knows that it knows that it knows, right? The head is saying, Home Depot can afford it. It's a public corporation. They're worth billions of dollars. And there's this other voice, Yoda, on the other shoulder. That shit's wrong. You know, that's wrong. But I left it, my man, till morning. And as soon as I got to work, I threw that shit in the dumpster. You know? And I'm free. The program taught me that. That's not me. My basic instinct is to return that thing, get my $15 back, and get another switch. That's my go-to. That's my instinct. You'd think after a bunch of years, after a few decades, that I wouldn't think like that anymore. I mean, in the end, I did the right thing. But man, it's still a battle. It's still a little bit of work involved. But that's the stuff that I change that keeps me away from the drink. Now that's something small, but let's add something else to that. Let's add another situation to that. Let's add some people to that. And eventually we get to a point where I can't stand the way I feel for one more freaking second. And I know what'll fix that. Now where does that barometer get to a point where I lose the power of choice? What does it take to get there? Well, I found a way to find peace without the drink and the drug. Why am I going to take myself out of that? We talked last week about getting right with the people around us, to get rid of those dark clouds around us. Financially, criminally, relationally, with family. We can talk briefly about family. You know, a couple things I wanted to touch on before I move on is I didn't talk much about my mother and my father. My mother, if I owed anybody amends it was my mother. You know, and my poor mother, what she put up with. My mother had 4 kids, 3 of us were addicts and alcoholics. I don't know why my brother got skipped. You know, it was me, and then my sister's 2 years younger than me. She was 2 years less sober than me, and then it skipped my brother, and then my baby sister died of an overdose about 17 years ago, somewhere in there. So 3 out of the 4, my mother was tormented by us. You know. But my son, my younger brother was always the good son, you know. And I was out there, man. I was ripping and roaring. And I shared with you, my mother had to hide her stuff when I come over. You know, my mother got a good night's sleep when I was in jail. You know, I could never pay my mother back monetarily for the harm that I had done, and believe me, I had the formal amends. I deeply regrets, you know, and I've done everything financially that I could do, and it took some years. My mother had a knee replacement surgery and flatlined on the table, and was bedridden for the next 3 years of her life. She passed away about, I think it's 2 or 3, about 3 years ago now, I think. It's somewhere there. And one time she woke up out of a coma and she looked at me and she said, "Why don't you get along with your sister?" And she went back to sleep. She didn't care about the money. She just wanted her kids to be happy. She just wanted all her kids to be happy. You know, I made amends with my sister that night. You know, I hadn't talked to my sister for years. That night I called my sister and said, "It's okay, everything's good." Till Mom passes. No, not true. Well, it is true, but my mother put her life in my hands before she passed. You know, I was the prodigal son. I was the son who came back and became everything that my mother wanted in her son. You know, I had demonstrated over a period of years that I had changed. And her and I's relationship the last 10 or 15 years of her life was just incredible. And in the end, I was the one, not her husband, not her other son, me. He said, you make the call. That's incredible. That's an immense. My father, I don't know what's going on. My father left when my father was one of those guys that's on my doorstep that I did nothing to harm except own the resentment, and which I did. I mean, I resented the fact that my father left when I was 5. I resented the fact that my father abused my mother in front of us children. I resented the violence that took place in my house. I resented the fact that he left when I was 5, never paid a dime in child support, and we were pretty much raised by my grandmother. He was a deadbeat. But there's something in me that wants a relationship with this guy, and I don't even know what that is. I don't know if it's inherent. I don't know if it's, just maternal. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is that, I've tried to talk to him at times. He's one of us that doesn't know it. He's that guy that drinks a half a fifth of vodka a night to go to sleep. He thinks it's potato vodka. I think he thinks it's a vegetable. I don't know. That's what he says. It's potato vodka. I said, okay. You know what he said? When you're ready to have a drink, give me a call. He just doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. And I haven't talked to him in a long time. I haven't talked to him probably in 10 years. I don't even know if he's alive. But there's a part of me that wants to talk to him. That wants to repair the relationship, right? Because if anybody understands how your life can go down a road that you didn't plan on it going down, I do. We do, right? We do. We get it, that we went down a road we didn't plan on going down, and we heard a lot of people doing it. I get it. Raised by an alcoholic mother and father. Father come home drunk, wake him up, have the boys compete against each other in the wee hours of the morning. Craziness that he went through. He had no shot at relationships. He had no shot. And here's the rub. I became him. You know what I hated my father for? Assaulting my mother in front of us. You know what brought me into the rooms? I assaulted my wife in front of this boy. In front of my 2 boys. Yeah, I understand how life can take you down a road you didn't plan on going down. And I want him to know that. I want him to know that. There's a story I heard, it's kind of like a history type story in AA. And it's a story about a guy named Frank Buckman. And this guy is living off his mother and father's money, opens up this hospice for young guys, young men, a not-for-profit, to help homeless children and children who have been abused and all different things. And he opens up this hospice free. Right? And he gets these investors, and this board of directors takes place, and they come together. And eventually, the board of directors squeezes him out and makes this a for-profit venture. And he's pissed. Frank Buckman is pissed. And he has this resentment he cannot let go of. And he's trying everything to let go of it. And he decides to, on his mother and father's dime, to go to Cambridge, England, and listen to this preacher, like a Jimmy Swaggart, H.B. Myers, the guy's name. He's like the who's the best evangelist now that's out there? Whatever. Elvis. That's good. Billy Graham, we all know Billy Graham. He's still alive, I think he is. No? Recently, right? Last couple of years? No? It's been a while. So he goes to see this preacher, this H.B. Meyer guy, right? And he sees all these people going into this room. He thinks there's some social gathering going on. And there's this woman, Jessie Penn Lewis, who's doing a sermon in the room. And her sermon is on forgiveness. And the end of the sermon, the point is, forgive everybody, everything. If you want to be free, forgive everybody, everything. Right? And that story hit me. Like, I need to forgive him everything. Forgiveness frees the forgiver. Forget about the guy you're forgiving. The person, it frees me. Just like the fifth step, right? Confession frees the confessor. The person who's hearing it might have some input, but it's really unaffected. Honored. I'm honored when I get to hear one. But I don't have the experience that the confessor has. And the same with forgiveness. Forgiveness frees the forgiver. And Ben used to always talk about this healing circuit that takes place, that as I forgive you, I am forgiven. Right? That's how this works. I'm incapable of forgiving myself. But God will forgive me when I forgive you. The universe will forgive me when I forgive you. This healing circuit that takes place. Now, the real importance of that story, aside from that, is that Frank Buckman leaves that convention and starts the first century Christian movement, which becomes the Oxford groups. Right? And then we know the story from there, right? Roland goes to Switzerland to see Freud. Freud's not there. He's out doing coke somewhere. And he gets with Carl Jung, and Carl Jung tells him, you need to find God. And he goes, great, I'm going to go back to church. He said, nope, that's no good. That's not going to be enough for you, because he's already been going to church and he's there. And he finds the largest Christian movement of the day, and he joins the Oxford groups. And that's important because Ebby Thatcher gets court ordered to the Oxford groups, and Roland Hazard takes Ebby Thatcher to the Calvary Mission in New York City. And Ebby gets sober and carries the message, the solution, to Bill Wilson. So without that resentment, we're not here. And that's all, right? The guy gets a resentment, and AA is born from it. Right? I always think it's incredible that our problem, our solution, and our program of action all come from non-alcoholics. I think that's it. So Forth gave us the problem, right? Carl Jung gave us the solution, and the Oxford groups gave us the program of action. That's incredible. Seconds and inches. There's a difference between whether we're all here or not. You know, whether there's literally millions and millions of people sober and clean. You know, we're not the only program that uses these steps. But I need to somehow let him know that it's okay. You know, I don't condone it, but I get it. I can understand. So I'm going to do. You know, I picked up a drink at 16 years old, and that drink changed my life. Changed my life. So I'm going to read the promises a little bit different here. I stole this from Charlie Parmalee. It says, when I took a drink or a drug, I knew a new freedom and a new happiness. When I took a drink, I didn't regret the past or wish to shut the door on it. That day I picked up that drink, I comprehended the word serenity, and I knew peace. That day I picked up that drink, I knew how my experience could benefit others. When I picked up that drink, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity disappeared. When I drank, self-seeking disappeared. When I drank, my whole attitude and outlook on life changed. Fear of people and insecurity left me. When I drank, I intuitively knew how to handle situations that used to baffle me. I realized then that alcohol could do for me what I could not do for myself. Halfway through a bottle of Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill, I went from Pee Wee Herman to John Travolta, right, at a dance. I was that kid that didn't go to dances. I didn't go to homecomings. I didn't go to any of those get-togethers. I was that kid always on the outside looking in. That day, I became part of life. I danced with every girl in that dance, whether they wanted to or not. You know that guy keeps coming around in front of you? You know, ladies, you're dancing with your girlfriends, and that guy keeps around. That was me. You know? Got to hold a girl that night. Got to touch a girl. You know? I was never going back to that insecure kid that had this inner dialogue that said he wasn't the right height, didn't have the right looks, Too skinny. Why do you have freckles? All of that went away. But what happened 20 years later in a hotel room, on page 52, it talks about the bedevilments. That fix, that magic stopped happening, stopped working. And I'm having trouble with personal relationships. I can't control my emotional nature. I'm prey to misery and depression. I can't make a living. I'm feeling useless. I'm full of fear. I'm unhappy. And I can't seem to be of help to anyone. And it wasn't until alcohol stopped working that I had any desire to get help. I loved the effect produced by alcohol. I love Sandy Beach says it, man. You know what happens when you stop drinking? You're sober. That sucks. You find out why you drank. Charlie used to say, you'll feel better. You'll feel anger better. You'll feel resentment better. You'll feel anxiety better. You'll feel fear better. And these steps put me back together the way God intended in me. And I found a way of life that would do what alcohol did for me. And that's what I needed. I needed a power greater than alcohol, not a power greater than me. I'm incapable of fixing me. I need something that would do for me what alcohol and drugs did for me. And this program does that for me. It's step 9. The promises come true. The opposite of the promises I got. I'm doing the same thing here. I got the same thing here that I got with alcohol. Only without the divorces and the jails and the anger and all the stuff that comes along with it, all the tragedy that comes along with it. And now I want to stay there. And that's where we're at. You know, I was saying, I think when we were in 6 and 7, that the reason why I think 6 and 7 is so short, I mean, they're the most important steps in the book, I believe. I think everything leads there and everything leads back there. You know, it's my behavior that is the issue. And I need to change my behavior. I need to change the way I think, and my behavior will change. And I think 6 and 7 exposes that. And what it tells me is I can't fix this. Only God can fix this. I look at 6 and 7 like steps 1 and 2. I'm powerless over alcohol. Only God can fix it and remove the obsession. I am powerless over my defects of character, and only God can remove them. And I really believe that step 10 leads back to 6 and 7. That's why 6 and 7 is where it's at. It's just these 2 paragraphs, and then 10 is where we work on 6 and 7. That's spot check inventory. As soon as I get out of the sunlight, how do I get back in? How do I stay in the sunlight? Because I'm not. Look, I just explained to you. I can get out of the sunlight with a light switch. You know what I mean? It doesn't take much for me to get out of the sunlight. It's a new world. This is the new frontier, Bill called it. Mm-hmm. You know, this emotional sobriety. It's an emotional condition that I suffer from. How do I keep that in check? How do I stay there? The 4th dimension. Right? I think it was Tom who used to say that, the length, width, depth, and then the 4th dimension in those days might be time. You know, now they don't even know how many dimensions there are. It can be hundreds of dimensions within millions. Who knows how many dimensions are within dimensions? But time might have been the 4th dimension when Bill wrote this. We're going to be rocketed into now. Right? Isn't that what it's about now? How do I stay in the sunlight now? In the moment. In the moment. Not how am I going to stay sober for the rest of my life. How am I going to stay sober now? Right? In the moment. Today. I remember saying that when I got here. This is the rest of my life. I didn't know you didn't drink when I got here, by the way. I had no idea. My sister drank. She had been coming here for years. You know, I had no idea. I went, is this forever? You know, some old timer goes, nope, just for today. You know, how profound. I didn't know how profound that really was, right? Because that's really what it becomes about, right? How do I get through the day? Well, I get through the day with the moments, right? Like stay current. Stay current. Now. And now. And now. How do I stay in that light? And to me, that's what this is about. We always called it 4 through 9 all the time, you know. And by the way, we continue this way of life as we clean up the past, right? We don't wait till we're done with step 9 and then move into 10, 11, and 12. I have my guys do 1 or 2 amends, and then we move into 10, and we keep going back to the list. We continue this way of life, right? Grow in understanding and effectiveness of God, right? Understanding of God, and how do I carry that message? How do I stay in this moment? And to me, it's like I felt great a minute ago, and now I don't. If I use this tool, I don't have to look back very far. What changed? What changed? What is going on in my head? Do I have a resentment? Am I angry at something? Am I fearful about something? Am I feeling some guilt about this light switch? You know? Is there some shame here? Hell yeah, there was. Do I need to call somebody and talk about this? Is there something in my head that I need to let go of? I need to call somebody else who's working a program, call my sponsor? Am I acting out on a defect of character here that I need to ask God for help with? Do I owe an amends? The 12 and 12 separates all the inventories into 10 and does 11 is pretty much all prayer and meditation. But the 11th step in the big book is really an inventory step. Yeah. But I love how the book is laid out. Look, this is a focused reference on where we're going to start as far as prayer, meditation, and inventory is concerned. Right? We're going to be doing inventory the rest of our lives. That's why I like when I do 4 and 5, I tell guys, did you do the best you can at this point? Did you do the best you can? Because we're going to revisit the inventory. You know? And most of the guys I sponsor, we do it nightly. Every day, we're doing an inventory. Written. I do a written inventory almost every night. I'm pretty religious about it. I got away from it for a while. I remember telling one of my guys, all right, now that we're on step 10 and 11, we're going to start doing a nightly inventory. And he said, do you do it? I said, of course. I started again that night. But here's the way my day starts. Bill puts the spot check inventory, then he puts the nightly inventory, then he puts what to do in the morning. I'm not sure what he was thinking there. I think he was doing 10 to put us back to 6 and 7 for a minute and give us a tool to work on 6 and 7. But my day runs like the 10 and 11 step combined, right? I get up in the morning and I do my rituals. I have some readings that I do first thing in the morning. Some that I do every morning. I get some texts. I get one from Sheldon. I get one from George. I get different texts in the morning. I read those. I'm a 3rd step prayer guy. I love the 3rd step prayer. Get me out of the friggin' way, right? Relieve me of the bondage of self. I do almost exactly what the big book talks about, where I look ahead of my day. Am I afraid of something that's going to happen today? And I always am. I'm in the service business. I'm always doing things that I've never done before. There's a lot of fear involved in what I do for me. Fear is my enemy. Fear is still my enemy. So I ask God to help me with that particular job that I have to do that day. I'm afraid of that job right now. Help me walk through that fear. Some mornings it's just get me to work. I swear to God. Does anybody but me get up in the morning, look in the mirror, and go, shit? Does anybody else do that? No? Okay.
Not anymore.
And then my next word is thank you. Thank you. I try to start my day with thank you. Before I even get out of bed, I try to say thank you. But it just doesn't always happen. I'm overwhelmed some mornings. Some mornings, some nights I'm up praying to let go of what's happening tomorrow. I'm living the wreckage of tomorrow. I live the wreckage of the future. And without God's help, I'm a basket case when it comes to that stuff. So I have a job that I got to do, and I ask God for direction. Right? Help me walk through it. I know we can walk through it. Just get me to show up. And I'm feeling pretty good when I leave the house. I'm feeling pretty serene. I've done my little meditation. I've done a little prayer. Done a couple readings. And then I got to merge on the Sawgrass Expressway. Right? I was fine a minute ago. And then one of three people shows up at that merge on the Sawgrass, right? There's this one guy who's going to beat everybody to the toll booth, right? Like, you don't belong in that lane to begin with. Am I right? Right? That's an exit lane, right? Does anybody know the rules of the road? Let me just explain how you're supposed to drive. Right? There's an exit lane, there's a travel lane, and there's a passing lane. Okay, just for your information, because I know I've run into some of you assholes about that. So when there's people coming on, you're supposed to move over to the travel lane. And if you don't, I'm moving you over there, right? Some mornings. Other mornings, I'm just flooring it, and I'm going to get in front of you no matter what. I don't care if I have to kick up rocks, I'm going to beat your ass to that lane. Right? And then some mornings I'm pretty serene. I hit my turn signal, merge up, speed up or slow down a little bit and find my way in there. But then I get over there into the fast lane where I want to do 80, because that's what I do. And 9 over. So I know that's legal. And then there you are doing the freaking speed limit. And you think it's okay because you're doing the speed limit. But it's a freaking passing lane. But this is where my head's at. Right? And I catch myself right there. Dude, you're out of the sunlight, man. Right? That's what this step is for me. That's what it does for me. Bring it back. Bring it back. Chill. You're going to get to work, what, 2 minutes earlier? If that? I mean, we're all going to hit the same light, the same toll booth. We're all going to meet up again in the future here. And I'm back in the sunlight. My whole day's like that. I get to work, I got more people to deal with there. I've got warehouse people to deal with there. I've got shipping and receiving to deal with there. Am I going to let them take me out of my zone? Or am I going to stay serene and just handle it the way I'm supposed to handle it? Not always. Things don't always go my way. But this step allows me to get back into the sunlight over and over again. My day, I deal with 6 or 7 different people. Let me tell you something. Assholes are spread very evenly through the world. Right? They're not all concentrated in one area. Right? So I run into people that I clash with. I just do. People can be mean, and I can be mean. I do learn this, that I dictate most people's reactions. That my attitude dictates most people's reactions, positive or negative. How I show up usually dictates how that job is going to go. And soon I catch myself. I leave that job and I go, oh my God, what a cluster you made out of that. Do I owe an amends? And I'll tell you, I have called customers after I left their house and said, that was on me. That was on me. My bad. My attitude sucked. Or I'm sorry I reacted that way. Get back into the sunlight. At some point, we hope to stop apologizing. At some point, we hope to start finding restraint and not react. And find that pause. And as soon as I find a pause, God enters, and I let it go, and I don't react. But when it comes, I shared with you guys at 6 and 7, when it comes to threatening my pocketbook or my reputation or my relationship, man, my immediate reaction is defensive. It's immediately. But I have to reel that in. I think I heard Pete say it once, and I hate it when I hear it in a meeting too, where we use the 10-step as an excuse for bad behavior, right? Thank God for the 10-step, Pete said that, I acted out on some old behavior. I heard Pete say, no, that's current, right? If you acted out on it today, that's current behavior, right? Old behavior is something you don't do anymore. It's not old behavior if you're still doing it. You know? I think about that all the time. One of those things I just held on to. You know? When am I going to stop being an ass? You know, when am I going to start treating people with respect? When am I going to stop letting them dictate my reactions? When am I going to stop letting them run my life? And that's basically what we're doing. When we're pissed off at somebody, we're letting them run our life. We're letting them dictate our feelings, our emotions. And my 11th step is, how well did I do? Okay? There's the questions, pretty much the questions that they ask in the book. I created another sheet. I don't know if I created this or not, actually. Some of it. I'll take credit for it. There you go. And I have 12 questions, and then we added 4 more. Right? How was I resentful? Was I resentful today? If so, do a 5-column or 4-column inventory. You know. Was I selfish, egotistical, or self-seeking? Was I dishonest? Was I afraid? Do I owe an apology? What have I wrongly kept secret? Was I unkind, cruel, harsh, or unfeeling? Was I unloving, cold, unresponsive, or indifferent? What could I have done better? Was I thinking of myself most of the time? Was I thinking of what I could do for others? Was I thinking of what I could pack into the stream of life? And we added these. Who did I help today? What did I accomplish today? Something a little bit positive. What am I grateful for today? And who needs my prayers today? There's somebody on my prayer list every night. People sitting in this room that are on my prayer list. Every night. I want to go to bed with a clean slate. And if there's something that needs to be addressed, I want to do it immediately tomorrow. If there's something on here where I owe an apology, I want to address it immediately tomorrow and get back into the sunlight. My life depends on me staying in the sunlight of the Spirit. My life depends on me and my relationship with God. I am truly sober by the grace of God. Truly sober by the grace of God. Thank God I have a merciful God. Because I'm telling you, I wonder whether I deserve it. You know, at times. But obviously he had a job for me. I really believe God said, "You're done. I got a job for you," and dropped my ass in AA. You know? And I get to do that today. You know?
You do it well.
Thank you.